Here we go. Trump reacts to drone incursions as Polish president hails allied unity. There you go. That is Trump's reaction to 19 drones flying into Polish airspace. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. What is that supposed to mean? What is even happening? What is happening in that senile old man's head? Here we go. That's gonna definitely be my thumbnail thing for the Polish drone thing. That's definitely going to be the thing that I'm going to be putting on as the thumbnail thing. Here we go. Wait, what is horrifying? The Charlie Kirk shooting or the 19 Russian drones entering Polish airspace? Because today's news is pretty intense. Charlie Kirk? Oh, okay. I guess 19 drones entering Polish airspace is not, I don't know. Yeah, the Charlie Kirk thing. I just did a whole coverage of it and you've missed it. You've missed my take on the thing. We're gonna have to wait for it to become a segment, which fake Alec Kyle Parker will proudly edit for me as my editor-in-chief. I wonder if he's still even here. As we speak, a brilliant new segment is being uploaded to the channel. Well done. The computer is having problems processing all the intense news of today. I'm noticing. Please tell me that this is an Onion article. That's embarrassing that this is Trump's reaction. No, this is the TVP World. A Polish, this is not an Onion article. This is Trump's actual reaction. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. Here we fucking go. Okay, I should actually talk about the drone thing first. Before we talk about, before we actually talk about Trump's reaction, let's just talk about the thing. Okay, let's actually talk about the thing because it's, here we go. Let's talk about this. Because it shows the map, okay? It shows the map of Poland with the places where the drones actually... Look how deep into Poland those drones went. Warsaw is here, and they went past Warsaw. 19 drones. Some of them were, of course, shot down. I hear reports that 4 of the 19 drones were shot down, so many of them went deeper. And today I received a warning on my phone, telling me to alert the authorities of any drones I encounter and not to approach them. What were the drones for? The drones were for bombing Ukraine, the Shahed drones of Russian production. Russian Shahed drones, usually packed with explosives. Those drones are used on the daily to terrorize Ukrainian cities, the Shaheeds. I know because a lot of the time when I'm in Kyiv, those Shaheeds, why were they in Poland? Well, that's the $1 million question. Some people claim that they steered out of course and entered Polish airspace. Some people claim that it's Russia testing the waters to see how NATO will react to such a provocation. And especially since this has happened, 19 drones have entered Polish airspace just a few days before a big exercise between Belarus and Russia, military exercise, for which Poland has already announced that it would close the borders. So that is part of the context behind what has been happening. And as I said, 19 drones have been spotted. 19 drones have entered the space. For example, a drone has hit a building, a residential building in Poland. I have a photo of it. Oh my god. I have no clue why the computer is just dying right now. I don't really have anything turned on that's so resource heavy. I don't really even have that many tabs on right now. What the hell? I'm curious what kind of retaliation will come from this, because if Poland does nothing, it's like an invitation to attack Ukraine through Poland, basically. I mean, yeah, that is correct. That is also one of the hypotheses that Russia just wanted to divert the drones through Poland and then back them up to Ukraine. That is something that Russia has actually done in the past. that the drones would enter Polish airspace temporarily, only to back up and go to Ukraine to terrorize people. And of course, we'll talk about all of this. So a building was hit. There you go. As you can see, the roof is totally demolished. A Shahed drone is a pretty big drone, and a single drone can do a lot of damage, as you can see. This is pretty unprecedented. This sort of thing is... There have been violations of Polish airspace before, but not to this extent. Not quite on this level. Usually it will be a rogue drone entering the Polish airspace. Usually it would be one trade drone that would enter sometimes even deep into Polish territory, but not 19 drones. Some of them were shot down, which as well is a pretty unprecedented thing when it comes to these violations of Polish airspace. This is a new situation. And Poland has invoked Article 4 of NATO, which means that NATO members will have a meeting and they will discuss this matter, and they will discuss what to do. Which, I'm gonna be honest, I do not have high hopes for something coming out of that meeting. I'm very skeptical, and unfortunately, I do not believe any concrete and decisive action will come out of this. Preferably, if we lived in a sane world, if we lived in a just and sane world, the NATO meeting would culminate in Poland deciding to shoot down Russian drones and missiles from above the Ukrainian sky. That would be the, like, oh, you've sent us 19 drones. Well, I guess, you know what? We're gonna start shooting down drones and missiles in Ukraine before they even reach Poland. You know? So that is the thing. Personiše Videospiel Ost says, Poland's airspace is getting violated and the US president is reacting with a quip subtweet instead of reassuring the Polish and Europeans and Europe in general. Yeah, it's, it's just business as usual with Donald Trump. If NATO does nothing here, it also puts into question the legitimacy of the alliance. Yes, something needs to happen from this, and I'm unfortunately very skeptical if anything will. Like, I've already been angry that nothing has been happening in the past whenever the Polish airspace has been violated. But now, this is massive, okay? This is 19 Russian drones just entering, and the Russian side has the gall to just say, hey, it's not us. The drones came from Ukraine. How can you blame us? Polish authorities said they have located debris from 16 Russian drones and part of a missile as well, after reporting 19 airspace violations overnight. So it's not just drones. It seems like there was also a missile. I'm just learning right now. Part of a missile. Poland's military called it an act of aggression, which is a strong statement, and it should be followed by strong, decisive action. Like, something has to come out of this, right? Prime Minister Donald Tusk told Parliament in an emergency sitting on Wednesday morning that at least 3 drones posing a direct threat were shot down by Polish and Allied fighter aircraft. 3 drones out of 19. Now imagine if Russia was doing this to Poland on the regular. If Poland only managed to shoot down 3 out of 19 objects entering the Polish sky. Do you know how bad that is? Do you know that that's not good? That only 3 objects were intercepted out of 19. Adding that the final interception took place at 6:45 a.m. He cautioned that figures could change as investigations continue. By Wednesday evening, police and emergency services had confirmed the discovery of debris from 16 drones and the remains of a missile in several regions of the country. So there was a missile. There were not just drones, there was also a missile involved. Karolina Gałecka, spokeswoman for the Ministry of the Interior, said fragments were first found in a string of villages, mostly in the eastern Lubelskie province near the Ukrainian border, and later in the central Łódzkie and Warmińsko-Mazurskie provinces, and the south-central province, which is mine, województwo Mazowieckie, near Warsaw. Wreckage was recovered in... Thank you for pressing the like button. And so I managed to give you some new information. I did not know there was a missile. I actually learned that right now as well. So, you heard it here. Wreckage was recovered in locations including Czosnówka, Cześniki, Wyryki, Wobierzba, Kolonia. We don't have to read out all the names. Hours later, additional drone remains were located near the town of Nowe Miasto nad Plicą and between the villages of Rabiany. There were a lot of drones, okay? The bottom line is there were a lot of drone debris. So, basically, yeah. There's a lot of interesting details about this. There's a lot of unexpected news about this. This is also a very chaotic situation. Nobody expected 19 drones to just fly into Polish territory. And apparently, the Belarusians warned Poland of this. Apparently, Belarus warned Poland ahead of time that this would happen, which surprised the Polish side. Look at this. Russian allied Belarus warned Poland of incoming drone incursion. General reveals. Belarus, one of Russia's key allies, warned Warsaw that a wave of drones was entering Polish airspace during Wednesday's drone incursion. Poland's top general has confirmed. Ukraine did as well. I mean, I'm not surprised by Ukraine warning Poland. I am surprised by Belarus doing that. I mean, it might be just a PR stunt saying, oh, look, we warned you. Okay, we warned you, which shows our good faith, so please renew diplomatic relations with us. That could be the actual ploy here. I wouldn't put it past Belarus to just turn around and say, hey, look, we warned you. Why not just normalize relations with us now? General Wiesław, yeah, of course. General Wiesław Kukuła, chief of the General Staff of the Polish Armed Forces, said the advance warning was helpful for us, but somewhat surprising, given Belarus' support for Russia in the war in Ukraine and tensions along the border with Poland. The Belarusians warned us that drones were heading towards us through their airspace, the general said, adding that Poland accepted the tip-off and reciprocated by sharing information about objects flying towards Belarus. It was surprising to me that Belarus, which is really trying to escalate the situation on our land border, decided to cooperate in this way. And now this says that the relations between Poland and Belarus has been tense ever since the war started or even before. Belarus had announced earlier on Wednesday, before General Kukuła's comments, that it had notified Poland before drones converged on Polish airspace. However, Belarus chief of the General Staff Paweł Murawejko said the drones had veered off course during combat operations in Ukraine, in contrast to Polish assertions that it was a deliberate provocation by Russia, which I will say I believe the Polish version more. I believe that it was a deliberate provocation by Russia. I believe it was the testing of waters. It is testing how NATO will react. It is testing how Poland will react, especially since there's a lot of talk of Russia having its sights on the Baltic states. And if NATO's response to this is mediocre, then Russia might feel emboldened to attack the Baltics, feeling that NATO will not really launch any decisive response to that. As the Russian Federation and Ukraine exchanged blows using unmanned aerial vehicles this night, duty forces and assets of the air defense system of the Republic of Belarus constantly monitored the unmanned aerial vehicles that veered off course due to electronic jamming from both sides, says Murawejko. Russia's defense ministry denied deliberately entering Polish airspace, saying it had no plan to do so during its attack on Ukraine on Tuesday night. A Russian diplomat in Warsaw said the drones had come from Ukraine, which is a meaningless statement. Of course, the drones will come from Ukraine. Okay, of course they will come from the side of Ukraine. So this is a ridiculous statement. Oh, what we fact box. Okay, I want to know the fact box. What we know so far. The incident. We're going to read out the facts. The military response, political response. We're going to talk about Article 4 of NATO. And then we're going to talk about trans response. So, as the most brilliant politician in the world says, here we go. The incident. Okay, let's see. Conrad says, I find it funny how many people just found out how the military drones look like. Most of them probably thought they were like those you gift to a child for a communion. Yeah. It's, yeah. People do not realize just how big the Shahid drones are. Yeah. They just don't know. The incursion was first detected at around 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 9th, and the last shootdown occurred at 6:45 a.m. local time on Wednesday, September 10th. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk told Parliament in an emergency session on Wednesday morning that 19 military incursions of Polish airspace were detected, so it was not all drones, as we already established. At least one missile entered Polish airspace. Although Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky said the number was about 24. The Rzeczpospolita Daily wrote, citing unnamed sources, that there were over 20 UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, and that the most likely figure was 23. Oh, okay. So there was more. It's not clear whether any or all drones were carrying a payload, as Russia also uses decoy drones to distract deplete air defenses. Okay, this is very sad that Poland only managed to shoot down 3 out of 19. But Tusk referred to them as attack drones and said they came from Belarus, which is contradictory from that. This is contradictory to what the Russian side said, that it came from the side of Ukraine. Just saying. Already we have a contradiction within this story. Zelensky said the drones were part of an overnight aerial attack on Ukraine, which the Ukrainian Air Force said involved 415 drones, 1 ballistic missile, and 42 cruise missiles. Of these, it said 8 enemy UAVs crossed the Ukrainian state border, flying in Poland's direction. Dutch Defense Minister Ruben Brekelmans said that the drones had been identified as Shahid models, which is not surprising to me because that is the primary model used in strikes against Ukraine, which are widely used by Russia. Shahids are made in Iran, but Russia also produces its own Shahid-type drones called Gerand 2, which is basically why Russia does not need Iran anymore for the production of these drones. Based on the same design, which is why when Iran was attacked by the US, some people said, well, there's the silver lining that Russia gets its drones from Iran. Iran is tied down with the US and Israel. And the obvious response was, well, no. Russia does not need Iran anymore. It just produces the drones domestically now based on the design. This was obviously an attempt to test Poland's air defense. I think that was definitely part of it. Greater Ends asks, Lucy, what is the outcome you hope for in this? Like, it seemed that triggering Article 4 was just NATO countries discussing what to do next. What I'm really hoping that will come out of this is Poland finally starting to shoot down Russian missiles and drones from the Ukrainian sky. Okay, Poland starting to defend the Ukrainian sky. That would be the ideal outcome. At least the western parts of Ukraine. At least. Okay, that would be the ideal outcome for Poland using anti-air means to defend the Ukrainian sky. By Wednesday evening, drone debris had been found at 12 locations in Poland, as well as the remains of an unidentified missile, officials said. The fact that most of the remains found were intact indicates that they ran out of fuel and fell out of the sky, the BBC's analyst said, which means that most of the drones were not shot down, which is very, very bad. Military response. NATO scrambled Polish F-16s and Dutch F-35 Lightning II fighters to intercept the threat, as well as Italian AWACS NATO multi-role tanker transport and German Patriots, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said. Tusk said early in the day that 3 or maybe 4 of the drones were shot down. which is a very bad record. Rzeczpospolita reported that most of the interceptions were performed by the Dutch, though it did not give hard figures. 4 Dutch F-35s were deployed to Poland on September 1st as part of NATO's air policing mission. Poland's territorial defense force was activated to perform ground searches along with 12,000 police officers, according to Polish Police HiQ, and an unspecified number of border guard officers and firefighters. Political response. Poland's president convened a sitting of the National Security Bureau and the National Security Council. Then both President Karol Nawrocki and Tusk said Warsaw would request NATO's activation of Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty, which provides for consultations between member countries. This is the 8th time Article 4 has been used in NATO's history. Poland has invoked it twice before, once in 2014 following Russia's annexation of Crimea, and again in 2022, along with 7 other countries following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Interesting that Poland is the country that invokes Article 4 the most. NATO is treating the incident as an international incursion rather than an attack. Reuters reported, citing unnamed sources, because of course they're trying to, this will be played down, because otherwise it would mean what? That a conflict between Russia and NATO has started. Of course, they would call it an international incursion. Of course, it would not be treated as an attack. Because if it was treated as an attack, then the consequences of that would be far more severe. NATO chief Rutte called it absolutely reckless and said a full assessment is ongoing. Reckless is one way to put it. Like, I am very scared of this and downplaying language. I'm very scared that this will lead to NATO members meeting and just deciding, oh, we will monitor the situation. This is of grave concern. We will definitely observe things, and Russia must be condemned, and we must keep supporting Ukraine, and that's it. It will end with words. That is my biggest fear about this whole situation, that it'll just end in a lot of talking and nothing really concrete happening. And I don't know, I feel like I have reasons to believe that will be the case. I believe that we have a little bit of a precedent when it comes to these things. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just ignorant, but I feel like we've been in this situation before and nothing came out of it. But let's continue. Oh, and by the way, there was a response from different leaders from different world leaders. Among them was the Hungarian leader Viktor Orban. Okay, and I thought that the Viktor Orban reaction to the situation is worth commenting on, because Viktor Orban tweeted about it and then got a response from the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski, and I think that exchange was good enough for me to showcase on stream. Hold on, because this is good actually. Hungary stands in full solidarity with Poland following the recent drone incident. The violation of Poland's territorial integrity is unacceptable. The incident proves that our policy of calling for peace in the Russia-Ukraine war is reasonable and rational, living in the shadow. Pokazaty Bilsze, okay? That is the statement by Orban Viktor. And now, response by Radosław Sikorski. No, Viktor. The incident proves you should get off the fence and condemn Russian aggression. We ask you to unblock the disbursement of EU funds for defense, approve tougher sanctions on the aggressor, and withdraw your veto on starting Ukraine's EU accession negotiations. In other words, stop being such a pussy, stop being such a pro-Russian stooge, Viktor. That is our response to you saying that you stand with Poland and that your policy towards the war is rational and good. Okay? Viktor Orban really tried to use this situation to say, oh yeah, we were right all along about the conflict. We were right about the long war. See, we're the rational ones. No, you're not. You're just fence sitters, okay? Or rather, you are a fence sitter. You and your stooges, okay? I thought this was worth talking about. So yeah, this is the situation. And of course, Zelensky has offered training to Polish forces to help them. Maybe due to Ukrainian training, the Polish forces will be able to shoot down more than 3 out of 19 objects out of the sky. I have opened up my. I've done it now. Okay, I've done it now. So maybe due to the training, maybe hopefully Poland will be able to shoot down more than 3 objects. I'm being a bit sarcastic, but 3 is bad. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he has offered Poland help training and advice to deal with Russian drone attacks because, let's face it, Ukraine has a lot of experience with that. Okay, Ukraine of all places has a lot of experience with. So, training Russian drone attacks after Russian-made drones breached Polish airspace 19 times. Because, yeah, Ukraine has a lot of experience with drones and with missiles. A little bit of a plug. You can even go and watch a Dylan Burns documentary on the matter. I think he did a few on specifically Ukrainian drones, on teams that shoot down Russian drones, etc. So you can watch that if you want more details on how the Ukrainian armed forces deal with Russian drones. Zelensky wrote on the X platform on Wednesday that he discussed the overnight drone incursions with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and proposed closer military cooperation. I offered Poland our assistance, training and expertise in shooting down Russian drones, particularly Shaheeds. Donald and I agreed on appropriate cooperation at the military level, he wrote, which I will admit would be a great help. And the more Poland and Ukraine cooperate, the better for both countries, the more tight the cooperation gets. The Ukrainian leader added, we all equally understand that this is a completely different level of escalation from Russia. There must be an appropriate response. Yeah, there must be. And I'm really worried about that part. I am really worried about the response. I spoke with Prime Minister of Poland, Prime Minister of the UK, President of the Council of Ministers of Italy, and Secretary General of NATO. Of course, first and foremost, we discussed the Russian drones launched against Ukraine I guess this will take a moment. Of course, first and foremost, we discussed the Russian drones launched against Ukraine last night that also entered Polish airspace. Incidents with 1 or 2 Russian drones had already happened before. That's true, and nothing ever came out of it. In NATO's eastern flank, countries including a few weeks ago in Romania, but this time the number of Russian drones was much larger, 19. Well, 19 flying objects. One of them was apparently a missile. So 18 drones? The brazenness much greater. The drones entered not only from Ukrainian territory but also from Belarus. And we all equally understand that this is a completely different level of escalation from Russia. There must be an appropriate response. Donald informed about the consequences and circumstances already established. The debris from Russian drones, including Iranian Shaheeds, was found in many towns and villages. Since last night, our military has been sharing all the information we have, and we continue this cooperation. There are several reasons for this brazen behavior of Russia, and they are absolutely obvious to everyone. We need to work on a joint air defense system and create an effective air shield over Europe. Ukraine has long proposed this, and we have concrete solutions. We must respond together to all current challenges and be ready for potential threats to all Europeans in the future. Likewise, we need to significantly increase joint funding for the production of interceptor drones. Yes, Poland is not well when it comes to drones. Poland is not good when it comes to drones. They have already proven their effectiveness. I offered Poland our assistance, training, and expertise in shooting down Russian drones, particularly Shaheeds. Donald and I agreed on appropriate cooperation at the military level. We will also coordinate with all NATO member states. So if more close military cooperation between Poland and Ukraine will come out of this, cooperation on drone production would be great, then that is already a positive outcome, but we will see. I tend to try not to hype myself up too much for positive outcomes, but that definitely would be one of them. Hello, Incube. Yes, you did miss the Charlie thing. I did a whole thing about it. Hopefully it was good. So that was a response. Tusk talks with leaders. The Polish Prime Minister took to X to announce that he had held conversation with key European leaders about concrete support for Poland's air defense. In my conversations today with Emmanuel Macron, okay, insert leaders' names, I received not only expressions of solidarity with Poland, but above all, proposals for concrete support for the air defense of our country. Tusk wrote. So yes, I sincerely hope that something good will come out of this. And before we go to the Trump response, we will read about this. Okay? We still have to read about this. Poland to trigger NATO Article 4. Which one shall we... Oh, I should have reset the computer before starting stream. Newsweek, why not? Poland has triggered NATO's Article 4 after Prime Minister Donald Tusk reported that 19 Russian drones breached Polish airspace. Well, we now know it was not exactly 19 drones. One of those objects was a missile. Or maybe it was 19 Russian drones plus a missile. Who knows? During an overnight strike on western Ukraine, the incursion, which prompted airspace closures and military response, marks a potential escalation in regional tensions and has drawn calls for allied consultations. And I really sincerely hope that anything will come out of these consultations, because if it just ends up being a limp-wristed, impotent meeting, then it'll just make a mockery out of NATO, to be quite honest with you. It would be a very sad outcome, and I sincerely hope some concrete action will come out of this. Is it fair for me to hope that this will be the case? Is it fair for me to be full of hope on this matter? Tusk said 19 Russian drones entered Polish airspace. Threats were neutralized by Polish and NATO defenses, and by that we mean 3 or 4 objects were shot down. Poland formally invoked NATO's Article 4, citing a threat to national security. Warsaw's Frederick Chopin Airport and the surrounding airspace were temporarily shut down. That is also a thing that is worth mentioning, that Polish airports were shut down. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov declined to comment, deferring to Russia's defense ministry. Belarus blamed electronic warfare for the drone's deviation. US response still pending, which is interesting considering that a lot of the drones came out of the Belarusian territory. So electronic warfare, I'm not sure that excuse even cuts it. US President Donald Trump issued his first public response to the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace, posting a brief post on Truth Social. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. Here we go. UN warns of escalation risk after Russian drone breach in Poland. No kidding. Real risk of the war in Ukraine expanding beyond its borders. So, you know what? NATO meeting over Polish 4. Jesus. Poland starts Article 4 consultation. Oh, I'm a human. You believe that I'm a human, right? Oh, thank you. I've been verified without doing anything. I wish this was taken as a pretext for Poland to send troops to support Ukraine. I wish that as well, but that will never happen. The best we could hope for is for Poland to start shooting down Russian missiles and drones from above the Ukrainian sky. I thought you were a duck. Shh. If I admit to that, then the site would never let me in. Poland has activated Article 4 of the NATO treaty to start an official consultation process over a threat posed by Russian drones entering Poland overnight. the country's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on X. Allied consultations have taken the form of a formal request to invoke Article 4. Article 4 is invoked when a country believes the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened, and deems a discussion on the matter necessary. The treaty explains. The consultation process is a necessary step before the members of the military alliance decide to take any action against threats, and especially before invoking the Article 5, the Mutual Defense Clause. The last time Article 4 was invoked was on 24 February 2022, on the day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Warsaw decided against starting the consultation process in November 2022, when 2 people were killed in an explosion in a village close to the border, though the leadership toyed with the idea. What happened? We've been talking about what happened. An extremely dangerous precedent, Zelensky says. EU reaction. Vladimir says, you know what, Lucy? I actually found a pre-recorded footage of Poland activates Article 4 and 5 and how discussions went. Okay, I know you're a troll. I'm not gonna use your link, okay? I actually probably even know what this video is, okay? I cannot ban you. Because I'd be banning 1/8 of my usual audience, okay? Not enough people are watching me for me to ban people willy-nilly. Oh, what a sad statement by me. The EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas said Wednesday that Russia appeared to have intentionally violated Polish airspace after Warsaw scrambled jets to shoot down drones. Last night in Poland, we saw the most serious European airspace violation by Russia since the war began, and indications suggest it was intentional, not accidental. So I guess this is the bottom line, that nobody believes this was an accident. Nobody does. Let's look at the Trump response, because here we go. US President Donald Trump has posted a vague initial reaction to Russia's drone incursion into Poland before discussing the dramatic events in a call with his Polish counterpart, who said that the talks confirmed Allied unity. Here we go. In the early hours of Wednesday, Poland shot down several drones. Trump must be having one hell of a day. I guess so. In the early hours of Wednesday, Poland shot down several drones, and by several, three drones, okay? 3 is not several. With the backing of military aircraft from its NATO allies, the first time a member of the Western military alliance is known to have fired shots during Russia's war in Ukraine. This is also unprecedented, by the way. This is a lot of the things happening in this whole situation is new. The first time a member of the Western military alliance is known to have fired shots during Russia's war in Ukraine, because it was not shot down and it went all the way to Gdansk and ran out of fuel. That is why. The answer to that is pretty simple. Several hours later, in a social media post that leaves much up for interpretation, the American leader commented, okay, we already read that a couple of times. Here we go. The somewhat vague message contrasted with Trump's show of support for Poland and its efforts to beef up its security during a meeting with Polish President Karol Nawrocki at the White House last week. What does the here we go mean? Like, here we go, conflict between NATO and Russia is starting, or what? What did Trump mean by the here we go? Nawrocki left that meeting speaking of the US president's security guarantees for Warsaw, along with promises that American troop levels in Poland would be maintained or even increased. The two presidents spoke on the phone on Wednesday, Nawrocki announced, without giving much detail. Just a moment ago, I spoke on the phone with US President Donald Trump regarding the repeated violation of Polish airspace by Russian drones, which occurred last night, Nawrocki said on X. The conversation is part of a series of consultations I am conducting with our allies. Today's talks confirmed Allied unity, which means nothing. It's just an empty slogan. It's an empty slogan that does not mean much, I'm afraid. The envoy, a key player in US diplomatic efforts in Ukraine, is expected to continue traveling onto Ukraine and in the coming days, according to the American network. Closest to open conflict since World War II. As the principal power in the NATO alliance, despite Trump's insistence that the other countries shoulder more responsibility over defense, the US will have a great deal of influence over any further response to Wednesday's unprecedented drone incursion. We will see what this response will be. We will see just what NATO will respond with. NATO, the West's most important military alliance, has activated Article 4 of its treaty in light of the incident in Poland, a government spokesperson in Warsaw said. Article 4 mandates consultation among member nations whenever one believes its territorial integrity, political independence, or security is threatened. I think the biggest question when it comes to all of this is what will come of it? What will actually happen? What decisions will NATO make? What will it decide to do? And my answer to that is, I have no clue. It might be something, but it might very well be nothing. And as Conrad just said in the chat, a nothing burger. I am very scared of that outcome. I am very scared of furthering a precedent of Russia being able to do whatever it wants and no repercussions at all happening. It will embolden Russia, definitely. If nothing happens after this will just embolden Russia, in my opinion. That is my take away from the whole situation. Something must happen. And if it doesn't, then it's a big failure of the West, quote unquote, and of NATO.